What's up, everybody? Los Silva here with Adam Questel, and today on Sheer TV we're going to talk about protein. Okay, protein is actually, for the common person, one of the harder things to actually consume and take in. See, it's really easy in your diet to eat anything off the cupboard, the kitchen, and everything, and you're going to get the majority. It's really carbs and fat. It doesn't have a lot of protein unless you're going into the meats, the actual just protein shakes. So how do you get the amount of protein that you need in a day? Especially when you're on the run, when you're doing whatever kind of diet it is that you're doing, how do we incorporate that in? We have a few methods and a few strategies that we want to share today. Right, Adam?
Exactly. So as Los mentioned, protein happens to be one of the least accessible macronutrients that you're going to eat throughout the course of the day. So as you alluded to, when you go somewhere to eat, let's pick somewhere. You go to Mike's restaurant, you ask for just rice. So with that rice, you're gonna get carbohydrates, but almost every single time that you have something prepared outside of your home, there's gonna be oil. So now you have oil, which in the form of fats, along with your carbohydrates instead of just one macronutrient. So that's something to think about when you go out and you have chicken, you have fish. Obviously steak is pretty fat dense. It's gonna be something that is not just accessible to a patron at a restaurant or wherever you are outside of the home. Protein by itself is not always easy to come by, is the long and short of it. Unless you're out there asking for like boiled chicken breasts or like grilled strips of salmon, I don't know how fancy you like to get when you go places, it's helpful to vary your protein sources with either some of the shakes that we do from time to time, a protein bar every now and then. A quick little protein hack, this is high level here, is string cheese. If you can get, if you can get yourself a string cheese that has a moderate to low fat content, like I like Frigo Light, it's mozzarella cheese, the macros are pretty off the hook if you think about just having protein with a minimal level of fats. So that's just one little piece of information as far as if you like dairy. If you don't like dairy, I don't think I like to be friends with you. Cheese is fantastic for on-the-go protein.
I like on-the-go protein. It does have fat though, but one of my on-the-go proteins is always jerky.
Jerky, interesting.
Turkey jerky specifically, lower on fat, higher on flavor.
Right.
Fun to eat when you're out, when you're in the car and stuff like that. A lot of times, like I was saying in one of the other videos, I have a higher fat diet. So I'm looking to kind of stay.
I do as well, so I sympathize with my brother here.
Yeah, so it's hard to just kind of be on the go and be at the gas station or be on an airplane, whatever it is that you're doing. Sometimes you want to just get something in, and if you don't, you resort to binging, you resort to eating bad, you resort to just taking whatever you see and just eating because you just need some sort of nourishment, man. So what I do is I always have jerky. I like turkey jerky from, actually Whole Foods makes their own brand, and that's the one that I end up eating, and I always have it in my backpack, whether I'm in my car or a lot of times I fly, and so it's always on me. I know that I'm gonna get a little bit of good protein and some decent fats.
Yeah, no, jerky is definitely an accessible source of protein. Instead of thinking, if I buy this, is it gonna be a bunch of fat? Is it gonna be a bunch of carbs? Just to squeeze 10 grams of protein in there. Because a lot of times you'll see things that'll say plus protein, whatever it might be, like Raisin Bran plus protein.
3 grams.
Yes, it's 2 grams per 1,000,000 pounds of sawdust.
Yeah.
So it's not accessible and it's not something that you want to be relying on as a protein source. So protein on the go can be a little bit difficult because in our minds we have ingrained into us that if it's convenient, I can make it work. And that's not always the case. There are plenty of protein bars or shakes that will say they have X amount of protein, but if you don't read that label, you're taking in a whole bunch of other levels of macronutrients and calories that you're really not even looking to take in.
We're actually gonna be doing another video, so make sure that you stay tuned for that one. On bars, we're gonna be taste testing, we're gonna be talking about the macros on certain bars, what bars are good to eat when you're on a low carb diet, when you're on just specifically a ketogenic diet, when you're on 40-30-30, which is more of a standard regular diet. Which ones should you take, why, and which ones taste the best?
Protein is essential for rebuilding muscle tissue. People think that you're gonna take in protein and grow overnight. That's just not how your body works. Just like people think that you're gonna go into the gym and create new muscle, I'm gonna be yoked by tomorrow. You have to destroy muscle tissue. Exactly, too much time. I cry often. It takes time, and you have to destroy muscle tissue to then in turn rebuild it through amino acids, which we get readily available from proteins. So what I think we should talk about, which I think is a point of contention and confusion, is protein sources.
Okay.
So you have several different categories of protein sources, which would range from being very lean to being very high fat, which would be on the very lean end of the spectrum. You're gonna have things like white fish, plain chicken breast. On the very opposite end of the spectrum, you're gonna have like a porterhouse steak, pork chops to a certain extent, bacon, things that taste more
delicious.
Delicious, exactly.
Amazing.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
But they're also more highly satiating, which means you will eat them, you'll stay fuller for longer, because you're not just taking in protein, you're taking in fats. So with that said, if we move in a range from lowest to highest as far as fat content goes, we have our chicken, we have our white fish, we have things like turkey. Then we get into the loin levels of things like pork loin, even to a certain extent, certain steaks, certain steak cuts. Then you have things like eggs. Then moving further in the other direction, once you've approached eggs, which do have some fat, you're gonna get into things like roasts, certain cuts of beef, some thicker cuts of pork, chicken thighs, things that do have not just protein, but do have some fat with them as well. So there are many different levels, varying degrees of protein intake that people like to adhere to. Mostly people, what you'll hear is similar to a gram per pound in the bodybuilding world. You really don't need to be up that high. Again, I think we spoke about it in our last video.
I don't.
You could be lower.
I don't. So I weigh right now, I weighed myself, I'm embarrassed to say it, but I weigh about 170 pounds.
Oh, whoa.
Very, very tiny right now.
No.
But I weigh about 170 pounds.
Okay.
And I take in, realistically, I was looking at my Fitness Pal, I can't get to 170 grams of protein often in the days, right? So I probably take in about 155 grams of protein, which I've heard is fine to take 0.7 all the way to 1, all the way to 1.1, 1.2, right? The way that I think you should kind of consider and look at it, right, is if you're in the bigger side, say you're 230 pounds and you are probably 20% or so body fat, you would probably want to take in more of protein grams, right?
Absolutely.
And if you are kind of leaner, you can get away with eating a little bit less because you kind of know your macro balances and you don't need as much because you're probably in some sort of a maintenance mode.
That's what they refer to as the thermic effects of protein. So for people that have a lot more level of body fat, people that tend to be a little bit bigger with a slower metabolism, you can afford to take in more protein because it's gonna serve two purposes. Firstly, it's gonna help you to rebalance your levels of glycogen, of muscle wasting, of any kind of protein sparing food that you might be taking in while you're lifting heavy and working hard. But it's also gonna serve as a function of keeping you satiated and keeping you fuller. There's the thermic effect as well to think about. Protein does have a tendency of burning a little faster than carbohydrates. So you will feel a different level of your metabolism burning a little faster. There's a difference between feeling it and seeing a change. So let's say if you take in a ton of carbs, from time to time you will feel a little sluggish, a little slower. Very rarely you're gonna eat a bunch of chicken and feel, oh, I can't get off the couch, I'm lethargic. People talk about turkey on Thanksgiving, but unless you're eating just turkey, I really don't see that happening to you. I don't eat just turkey because that's boring.
And turkey has what is it called?
People say tryptophan does have a certain level
of something that puts you
some kind of sleep agent involved. Something to think about in regards to that is in the golden era of bodybuilding, which we often refer to as that was the best time in bodybuilding ever. Gold's Venice, the Mecca, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Protein powder was not readily accessible to them. They weren't taking in these monstrous amounts of protein because most of their protein sources had to come from food. So that's something to take into account. If these guys were able to achieve these amazing levels of aesthetics and size without these incredible amounts of protein, it's something to take into your daily account to say, I don't need to kill myself eating 40 pounds of chicken, drinking 8 shakes, and being like Rocky and drinking a ton of eggs in the morning.
And the reality is, right, it's not real to your lifestyle. If it is, and you're a competitive bodybuilder, then you're following a very specific diet, very specific macros, and you are following a certain kind of habit and routine to achieve the goals that you're trying to do in that competition or photo shoot or whatever it is that you're doing. But if you're just on the day-to-day, I want to look better, realistically, I want to look sexier, I want to look bigger, I want to just be feeling better and be more optimal, then you don't have to freak out about, oh, I didn't take in 347 grams. I took in 180 and I weigh 200 pounds. You're fine. You're gonna be more than okay. You're gonna maintain your muscle mass and you're gonna be fine to consistently keep growing and have great sessions at the gym.
So by taking in monstrous amounts of protein, you're not necessarily helping yourself. Taking in a more moderate level of protein, do not worry, you're not gonna lose muscle, you're not gonna turn into a skinny twit overnight, you're not gonna wake up and look like Stretch Armstrong. It'll be fine. Taking in somewhere close to your body weight per grams, that's on the very high end of the spectrum. I know people that take in maybe between 100 and 120 and still can maintain certain amounts of muscle because of the other macronutrients in their diet, usually from fat.
Yeah, and that's something that we're gonna get into on the next video. We're gonna kind of talk a little bit about fat and why fat is amazing and not what you probably think, which is horrible. A lot of people have negative effects or have heard negative things more so on fat, and we're kind of gonna dismiss those tales. And we're gonna talk about why fat is a great thing for you. So that is it for this video on Sheer TV. My name is Los, this is Adam, and we'll see you guys on the next video.